Womp womp. All right, so let's read some super chats then. While we wait for the call. Oh, all right, they're already coming back in. Let's do this. Hey, what's your name? Where are you calling from?
Spocko from San Francisco.
Hey, Spocko, the voice of my other show, Scam Economy. How you doing? What would you like to talk about?
I would love to talk more about how to destroy News Corporation. It was great having Angela on. I sent you a audio clip in the. I don't know if you can get it through Skype. It was from 2010 when I was part of the campaign with Color of Change and Angelo while he was still in college, where we went to the advertisers first and got 88 of them to leave the Glenn Beck show. And then I ratcheted up and I went to the institutional shareholders and I said, hey, you're subsidizing a money losing program. And I asked the question in such a way that, like the analysts always have during a financial conference call. This was the Q3 conference call. I said, there's a link, gold ads on and house ads. How long are you planning on subsidizing it until it is going to be revenue in line with its ratings? And Murdoch was like, oh, well, I just think it's a great lead in and I'm not subsidizing it. I don't think that number is correct. And that was part of the start of making it so that Fox weren't getting advertiser revenue. And why they're having to rely on these, carriage fees, because, that was what the big part of my whole plan was to make it toxic for generic advertisers. And it's almost kind of like I almost want to say, this is a huge credit to understand that kicking off Tucker Carlson, who has become, advertisers don't want to be on the show, that can open them up for all sorts of new revenue. So that would be yet another way that they could get money.
I mean, I do wonder though, like, I feel like even though maybe advertiser wise, they what you say is true. Tucker was like a major, audience driver. He was my most popular show on any sort of cable news network, period. The top rated. So I
wish Angela was still here.
Right, right.
Because I wanted to. It's like I wanted to talk with him about this and with you and the rest of the viewers to talk about some of the stuff that Angela and I know about using the power of an audience and how if you take away one set of revenue, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're not getting other revenue, but that's still power. Those numbers are the power.
So what I'm thinking, what you brought up, and it's a great point, and I do wish Angelo was still on because I would have asked him this. I didn't consider this. Is when it comes to advertising revenue directly with Fox, they're not going to take a hit. But in terms of renegotiating those carrier fees, if less people are going to watch Fox because Tucker's gone, are they technically at their weakest point in quite a while to actually renegotiate those fees? Do you know what I'm arguing?
Yes.
Is that what I'm saying here?
Yes. And this was the thing that, after the Dominion case came out, it was like, there's so many people who are like, bummed and whatever. And they're saying, yeah, but, they're paying it off and they calculate it. These are all to be built upon. Okay, they're all to be, there's additional, I think Sam calls them knock-on effects, okay? Each step that can hurt them can then be used to hurt them in another way, okay? And in America, oftentimes it's just finances, okay? If you can have enough money to afford to drive certain ideas that you feel like in a longer term you can get more money or you get ratings, and the ratings can then convert to something like carriage fees, you can keep doing it and you will stick with the things that will get you the ratings and the ratings, so you get the carriage fees. So one of the things that and again, I wish Angela's here because these are some of the plans that I've been working on. I actually very lucky last Thursday, I was on a panel session talking about using financial leverage to fight the right, the limitations. And I talked about some of the successes as well as what's in the future. And there's a part of me that wanted to go into the past and talk about, what I did back on starting with KSFO and then with Glenn Beck and then Rush Limbaugh. I actually directed people to the podcast where you and I talked about Rush Limbaugh from 2 years ago and how we weakened him in all of these different ways. But the next step, I also talked about people like Check My Ads Institute, the work that they're doing to hurt the revenue of people like Bannon and the next level where they go to the, Rumbles and they go to, and what we also need to look at are ways that we can deal with the way that Fox still has credibility. And this is something I really haven't seen anybody much talk about, except recently Glenn Kirshner talked about this, which was, we're all talking about the financial settlement, but does Fox change? Are there going to be behavior changes in there? Are there going to be penalties for a failure to see behavior changes? And this is like the Abby Grossman case right now coming up. The sexual harassment is part of the ways that Gretchen Carlson and a couple other people got like $35 million out of Fox. And there was supposed to be structural changes in how the Fox News people dealt with their sexual harassment case. And I found out like one of the people who was supposed to clean that up was that female executive who's the CEO of Fox, or what was her name? I don't really remember, but she didn't. Okay. And I thought that was fascinating. The thing that you brought up from Rolling Stones. They have used the negative information about Tucker as leverage. All right. You say, someone in the chat said mutually assured destruction. They're going to hold that up against him, just like they have used and held up against things against women after their settlement case for what was his name? Bill O'Reilly.
Bill O'Reilly, yes.
Yeah, where Andrea, what was it? Andrea, she was the one who he harassed, and he ended up paying like a $40 million or something.
She hasn't been around for so long now. I totally forgot.
Yeah. Seven different lawsuits against him that added up, but still on the benefit, they go, oh yeah, but he's brought us $1 billion. So we're going to, take the hit because there were no criminal charges. All right. And this is the other thing that I don't know is going to come out, or like any kind of criminal charges for Tucker, seditious conspiracy. I mean, I actually think Hannity is more likely to be, with that. But what are the kinds of things like that actually get people off there, like Matt Lauer, like rape, like all those things? I'm not saying that Tucker Carlson did those things. I'm saying if you really want to nail somebody in corporate world, you find the things that are unrecoverable to their image. And the other way that you do that is you make them so what was an asset is now a liability. And this is the thing that I'm thinking. There is calculus. There is this kind of, and I know this working with these companies, how much is it going to cost us to shut this down? How much is our exposure if we don't shut it down? And can we say, all right, well, if we destroy him and shut down the exposure, showing that we're, good and we're clean now, we can then skate until without making any other changes, and we'll have signed non-disclosures, et cetera, et cetera. And that's what they do oftentimes. So what I wanted to ask Angelo, and I've been, talking about this, is what are the things besides the, drop the Fox, your unfox your box, or whatever it is that they're calling it, stop the fees, that we can make it so that a political organization, which is Fox News, masquerading as a journalist entity, how can we disconnect those two? Not just because it's, of a technical definition wise, but in a way that structurally impacts them and weakens them in a way that does not weaken actual journalistic entities and hurts them in that way, which Glenn Kirshner said this, the American people have been harmed by Fox News in significant ways, and we have not been made whole. And for all the people who lost their parents to Fox and all those things, that's a big part of it. And the other part was, and I was actually listening to you and Angelo, which I really, was very fascinating by, was Bradney Zabrogny from MSNBC.
Right. Yes. She's very good. Yes.
She was just on talking about the death threats that she got every time Tucker Carlson was on.
Well, because she was actually a regular target of Tucker's show. She would consistently be like, not just like, him like addressing her pieces, but he would, personally, name her, show her photo up on the screen. It was well beyond, I think, what other people whose work he covered, well beyond where he'd go for others. I think he had a few people he had that sort of thing for, and she was one of them.
Right, and I just now I was Alejandro Cabrello.
Alejandra, yep.
You've never sent me her contact information. Thanks a lot.
Sorry, I'll get it to you.
Yeah. It's not the contact. It's kind of like, tell her I'm a real person to talk to, not just, because there's some specific things that I want to talk with her about. And she just talked about them today, which was that she talked about how these death threats always work for the right wing. And she mentioned 3 examples today. And she said there was one that was so from Matt Walsh and other ones, but she basically said they have the right wing threats work for them, and they keep doing them, and there's no good response. And I have been talking about ways that there can be. Here's one. It was okay. Bomb threats, canceled events, empty schools. How a bullying probe in Kyle paralyzed Wisconsin-Ton's democracy. After bomb threats, Iowa City School District removes book targeted by anti-LGBTQ Twitter account. And she says there's time and time again, the far right incites bomb and death threats against Target because of their support of trans people. Those institutions then cave under the threats of violence. Far right terrorism works. This is a tweet from her about 14 hours ago. Right. And they talked about, Bud Light Brewer, and they had bomb threats at the plant. So I have been talking about it, right? It's like, so what do we do about the people who incite them? And what are the consequences that we can do to fight back at the level of the threatening people? And then there's the level of the inciting people. And specifically, I was trying to get a hold of her because I wanted to talk about one of the people in the groups that Tucker Carlson threatened, which were the board of directors of the Vanderbilt University Medical Center. And he called their names, he put their faces up there, right, called them, murderers. And I was talking to Sam Cedar on a Majority Report. He's like, oh yeah, there's going to be some kind of defamation suit. And it's like, why not? There wasn't. So I wrote them after the Dominion case come out. I said, hey, now's the time. I mean, you get all sorts of dirt about them that you can find out that they actually know what they're doing is wrong.
I think I do think a lot of times people, even these organizations don't want to get involved because even though, it's not like suing somebody else, honestly. They know they get a whole apparatus involved, and they know they're going to be harassed, and they might not even win. So they go through this whole pointless thing with all this blowback and for what, you know? But Spocko, always a pleasure. Let's continue this because there's a number of people trying to call in today. Let's continue.
I know
this.
I tend to go on, but
no, usually it's great, but there's a bunch of people
but not
right now.
this time.
Yeah, no. What you're saying is great, but I got a ton of people waiting on the line right now. So let's continue this next time.
Okay.
Always a pleasure to talk. Always great content. Honestly, thanks so much, Spocko.
Okay, bye.